Hey everyone, welcome to the May 14th, 2024 meeting of the Portsmouth School Board. The first item on the agenda is the roll call. Patty?
Sure. Liz Barrett. Here. Pip Clues. Tish Campbell. Are they on Zoom yet? Supposed to be joining by Zoom. Okay. Carrie Nolte. Here. Brian French.
Here.
Nancy Clayberg.
Here.
Lisa Rappaport.
Here.
Lee Hudson.
Here.
Byron Maddow.
Here.
Rick Huebner.
Here.
Nathan Delaney.
Here.
Okay, can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next item is announcements and recognitions. Zach, do you want to start with that? Look at what I have.
Why don't you look at what you have, and I will. Oh, it's great. Perfect. Why don't you go for it?
Okay, did everybody see this? We were very, very excited last Tuesday at 3 p.m. on NBC. We were on the Kelly Clarkson show. It was a high school art teacher, Sarah Mundy, and her student, wait a minute, I'll tell you his name in a minute, Taryn Moyer, and Dondero School art teacher, Adam Bastille, and his student. They were involved in a joint project between Dondero and the high school, and it caught the eye of Kelly Clarkson, so they were on for about 20 minutes. I was thinking we could run it tonight, but it was too long. It would take up too much time. But it was awesome. The elementary school kids drew a picture of their favorite monster, a friendly monster, and then the high school kids made a sculpture out of it. So it was a really cool presentation about the part of the talk was about the influence that teachers have on our kids and how positive that is. Rick, you can probably attest to that with your work at the high school, but Sarah talked about how she went to Portsmouth High School. She's a graduate of Portsmouth High, and she struggled in school. And art was her area that she really enjoyed and that she really loved. And now she's a teacher at Portsmouth High, teaching that. And she talked about how art can really, get to a child and help them develop and grow. And the student talked about her, and I had tears in my eyes. I mean, the way he talked about his special relationship with his art teacher and his environment at Portsmouth High School, it was really cool. So if you have a chance, I'm sure you can YouTube it, right? Just go to the Kelly Clarkson show if you missed it, and you'll see it. So
Also available, linked on our Facebook page as well.
Oh,
if you want to
okay.
see it there.
Great.
So.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything?
Can I have a few from PHS?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So we've had a lot of stuff going on. So here, Ben Gottlieb in accounting and Mason Patterson in healthcare admin both received first place at the Future Business Leaders Award of America Student Leadership Conference. Morgan Cole won first place at the state at Poetry Out Loud competition, and then went on, I believe, to DC and competed in nationals. Zoe Gowen scored top in the state for her instrument at the New Hampshire All-State Music Festival. And then the PHS math team won the Tri-State Math League with Adam Hoskin coming in first for all seniors. And then finally, Kevin Gordon, Kevin sophomore? Junior. Had the highest score in the state at this year's Trig Star competition, and will be going off to nationals in June as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. That's a great update.
You're
and the
welcome.
debate team is Friday, correct? I think the debate team has a competition on Friday.
I believe so.
So that's something that we'll all have to watch for. Do you have an announcement, Liz?
I do. I just want to bring to the attention that there was a letter that went out that that the middle school is hosting all fifth grade parents on May 28th at 5:30. So that is, I may be a few minutes late for the school board meeting that night, depending on how long that goes. So that's happening. And also, Dondero is doing a big fundraiser at the high school on May 23rd to raise money for the ecology school to help lower the cost. And it's the Dondero Dribblers. So the teachers are all volunteering to play each other and potentially play students to raise money for ecology school. And there'll be an auction tied to that as well. I also know that the 5th grade band is having a concert, I believe, maybe an all-city concert coming up as well next week, I believe. So the Don Darrow fundraiser is on May 23rd, and then May 22nd, next Wednesday, is the band concert. So that'll be the 5th grade's first full concert. So it's exciting time for them. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Zach, no?
I just say really quickly that we just went through Teacher Appreciation Week, and I'm appreciative of the fact that we have amazing PTOs that do really good work in terms of making sure that we recognize and all the good work that our teachers do. But I would say same thing I said as City Council yesterday. The strength of what is a very successful school district here is the quality of our teaching staff and our staff in general. And I don't think you can, I think we have to be very thoughtful about how do we continue to retain the staff that we have and then bring in the next wave of folks in a period of time where there's only so many people now who want to do this job, where this used to be a job that a lot of people wanted to do. And so kudos to our staff, to who we have. Let's retain who we've got, and let's be really thoughtful about continuing to be a place that people want to come to. So.
Lisa.
It's hard to follow that, but I was going to give a shout out to the high school choir as well. They competed at Great East and placed gold. I don't know how the band did because I don't have a band kid. Do you know?
I think that they scored very high on their.
They did. I just don't
They're
know
both
exactly
gold
how they placed.
medals,
Yeah.
and platinum was they were both, yeah.
And our
very
awesome art
successful.
teachers, in addition to going to the Kelly Clarkson show, put on an amazing exhibit of all the high school artists at 3S last week.
Yes.
That was a really great event, and all the CTE students did all of the food for it. So it was a pretty great community event.
Well, I think we can all go home.
Done, positive,
Business do we have
ready to roll.
discuss? Yeah,
Yeah,
why do we have to
right.
stay here? Okay, we will move on. The consent agenda is next. We'd like to approve the April 9th, 2024 non-public minutes and the April 9th, 2024 regular meeting. Do we have a motion? Oh, okay, thank you, Brian. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions, any discussion? We have to have a roll call, correct, Patty?
Yep. Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Pip Clues absent. Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Rick Hugh. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Sorry.
Rick, we just made you a school board
Sorry about
member.
that.
Okay, next, thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is our public comment. We have two people in person here. The first is Ashley Blackington. Ashley, would you like to come up to the podium and give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Is this the timer? This year?
Never
Never mind. It says 3. I got excited
Yes,
that someone was
actually,
going to keep track of me. Otherwise, I just go on and on.
Okay, we are doing it up here.
Hey,
I like
there you
it.
go.
I am Ashley Blackington. I live at 65 Mendham Ave in
If you
Portsmouth.
could pull the mic closer to you. Sorry. Thank you.
I am a LHS parent of 3 with 1 in pre-K, so he's on deck to come in 2 years. Kate Hayden and I, you're going to hear from her too. We started a playground renovation project 11 months ago, knowing that it was going to be a big undertaking because it hadn't been done since Nancy led the charge on the last renovation a number of years ago. So in our part of the project, we've run into a bunch of issues so far that are specific to the location of the playground, being that we are in wetlands, being that a lot of those changes have come into place. But we've also run into an issue that is not specific to the LHS playground, and it's actually more of a broad issue that I wanted to talk about. So as of January 1st, 2024, all playgrounds in New Hampshire, legislation came into effect where playgrounds can no longer have loose material as their substrate. It has to be a pour-in-place, solid. It's not a solid, but it's a resilient solid surface, which is incredibly expensive. So the ticket for our renovation, the budget was around $300,000, which I believe is near what it was for the renovation years ago. The pour in place adds an additional $150,000 just for that material alone. So in the city of Portsmouth, there are 22 parks and playgrounds in addition to the 3 at the elementary school. The 3 elementary school playgrounds are the most heavily trafficked in the school. And as of now, the city of Portsmouth has no ADA compliant playgrounds for kids to play on. I'm an OT, so this is very near and dear to me as a really important thing that every student have an opportunity to go out and play at recess and be able to access the playground, to be able to get on and off the equipment and the structures and have things to do out there as part of the occupation of childhood, which is play. So the city is aware that this is an issue because they are also in the mix of a playground renovation at South Mill. So CIP funds have been obtained. I don't know what the technical term is, but there's $600,000 that is earmarked for the South Mill renovation. And my question, I guess, is there an opportunity for funds that are directed for a city playground that is used intermittently or not all the time be directed towards playgrounds at Dondero to finish theirs, New Franklin to improve theirs, and ours to be renovated to make sure that the 3 playgrounds in the school that are used every single day by every single student in the city of Portsmouth are accessible for every student. I didn't even plan that.
That was perfect. Yes. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
And you and I will communicate. I know I had sent you
Yes.
an email, so we will communicate.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Next, we have Kate Hatem.
Hi, Kate Hatem, 1 Ash Street in Portsmouth. And I won't take too much time. I know Ashley just covered a lot of the first things that I was thinking about talking about, but my son is the one who broke his arm last year, which spurred on this project. He snapped both bones in his left arm. Wasn't pretty, made me scrutinize the playground. There's a lot to be desired there that needs to change, needs to come up to compliance. ADA stuff, safety stuff, you know, there's on a lot of different levels that playground at Little Harbor needs to be renovated. So Ashley and I took on this project. And as she said, we have conservation issues, we have budgetary issues. So our hope is that we can work together with the school board, the city, and our playground committee through the PTA to come up with a plan to better maintain and renovate playgrounds. It's been 25 years since Little Harbor was last touched. A playground's lifespan is generally 10 to 15 years, so it's well overdue. And I think it's something that gets lost in the shuffle. Through this past year, we've encountered a lot of, well, it's the PTA's, we wait for the PTA to kind of step up and do it. And to me, that's just unacceptable. There needs to be a plan for maintaining playgrounds in the city for the 3 most highly utilized playgrounds by all of the children in the city. So my hope is we can get this rolling so that we can, A, redo our playground at Little Harbor, but also set up a better system for the future so that it's not 25 years later and broken bones later that we're kind of scrambling to put the pieces together. Where Little Harbor sits, it's on a wetland, so there's a lot more, there's civil engineers that need to be hired. This is well above the pay grade of a PTA. It needs to be, there needs to be a process for maintaining these places for our children. And I know a lot of you mentioned fundraisers and stuff like that. We had our first fundraiser today, a glow run at Little Harbor, and our goal was to raise $20,000, and we've already, our final numbers are coming in, but we've exceeded that number. So we're off to a good start, but obviously 20 grand is a drop in the bucket when you're looking at a $450,000 project. So we hope we can figure out a way to work with you guys to come up with a plan to better move forward without putting it all on parents to kind of say, raise the money, because it's just not, it's not possible to raise that much money unless we want to do it over the next 10 years. So we hope that we can figure out a way to move forward with the school board and the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Do I give that to Nathan? Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to speak? Patty?
No.
Okay, we will close the public comment session. And now we will go into a public hearing, and I will turn it over to Zach.
So just a reminder, we have a process that's in flux. I think we talked about this before. Under the board's current policy on gifts and donations, which is KCD, the superintendent can accept gifts of $500 or less without the board being involved. Anything that's over $500 and up to $5,000, the board can just put on the agenda of a meeting and publicly then consider it and vote for it. Anything over $5,000 under the current policy, you have to hold a public hearing. So you have an opportunity for the public to come in. You have to warn that the public hearing is happening. The public can come in and contribute their opinion as to whether or not you should accept the gift. And that's what we're going to do tonight, but I just wanted to say that the policy committee is in the midst of reviewing this because in the legislature in 2023, the statute that tethers this policy changed, and that number, the $5,000 number went to $20,000. Because it's very easy nowadays to get to $5,000, whether it's a cash gift or it's an in-kind donation of some form. So just be aware that that's the case. And this circles back to the public hearing today. Circles back to what Nancy talked about at the beginning, which is we were excited to have 2 of our teachers and a couple of our students on the Kelly Clarkson show. At the end of the Kelly Clarkson of that segment, they surprised the students and the teachers with gifts, $5,000 to go to the PHS, and I think $7,500 worth of books that were going to go to Dondero. Okay, so that looks great on TV. Here's what happens behind the scenes when that's going on. NBC calls you and says, hey, before we tell these people that they won these things, we need you to secretly sign off and say that you're going to accept the gift. And here's, we need that for our legal department so that after we give you the gift and we say it on TV, you then, don't decide you're not going to accept the gift for some reason, and now we've got a controversy. So we went back and forth about this, and I said, well, we just talked about this policy at the school board, and I'm not in a position to, I can't accept the gift, and we did a lot of creative conversation about what that might look like, and they were really wanted it to happen right away, and they wanted it to happen not in the public eye. I'm like, well, those are things we can't do as a public entity. So I can get you on an agenda right after the filming has occurred. So that's what you have this evening. The gifts that were mentioned as part of that segment, we'd have to vote to accept, and then I've got something to sign off on for NBC Universal, and then that will finalize that process. But under your current policy, you have to have a public hearing and have maybe Ashley and Kate are here to say don't accept the gifts from Scholastic, but you have to have the opportunity to open. Right. So anyway, so that's the deal, and you would open the public hearing, close the public hearing. Since I don't see anybody here after you do that, my suggestion would be that you contemplate suspending the rules and moving up the actual vote to now. Just get the vote over with and go from there. So.
Okay, I open the public hearing right now. If anyone would like to come and speak about the donations that we received from Kelly Clarkson, yes.
If I could, Nancy, thank you. I did watch the episode, and I believe, obviously, this is this donation and the format here is, that it's not conditioned, that it's going to the high school. But I believe that during the show, they had said that the $5,000 could go to the art room, to Sarah. And so I don't know if a motion needs to be made after this to ensure that those funds go to her. And I just think that it is really important because she has done so much in, the social media light to really bring attention and education around art and the benefits and schools and whatnot. And I would really like to see this money go directly to her classroom or the art classroom particularly.
So I would say that's our intent. I would say that I caught the same thing, having seen already that it was a non-conditional gift that was just going to go to PHS, and that's all the language we have from then. And then it was, and then Kelly was like, and it's going to go all to the art room. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what's in the paperwork. But I would say just in terms of that, based on the size of the gift, that I think that's appropriate to just have it go there. I think it's a different conversation if this was a $50,000 donation that was going to go to one art teacher only, and now we're in a different dialogue. But I don't think that's what's happening here. And I think our intent would be, without emotion, our intent would be that it would go towards Sarah's program work that she's already doing.
Yeah, and I know I've seen her, there's different types of things that they could put in the kiln, and they cost money for these particular shelving things.
Yep.
I know she's done her own fundraising for those type of things, and I just think it would be really great to give her this boost to be able to continue to do this type of work. So if a motion's needed after this, or I'd be happy to make it.
I believe it says in the article here that she's already spent the money building shelves in her classroom to be near the kiln. Is that my
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, with that said, I make a motion.
She spent her half on new shelves within the kilns in her classroom. So
Okay.
she's
Just-
already got the money spent.
We're just cranking up all the reasons why you got to say yes tonight, aren't we?
We're kind of boxing you in a little bit.
Okay, so the public hearing, is there anybody that would like to speak? Anyone on Zoom that might like to speak?
I just want to say thank you too to Scholastic for doing this. I mean, this is awesome. I don't know how the books are going to be distributed at Don Darrow, but I mean, 750 books, that's huge. So thank you for that.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. Okay, do we have a motion to move the agenda item up on the agenda?
Yeah, I have a motion to suspend the rules and move that item up to the next.
Okay, thank you, Brian and Byron. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the gifts? $5,000?
Well, we need to vote on
Just to
that.
clarify, and
on
the
that.
suspension of the rules is
Thank
a
you.
2/3.
All right, let's have a roll call, Patty?
To suspend the rules, Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Kip Clues, absent. Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Nancy Kleberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, now do we have a motion to accept from Scholastic $5,000 for Portsmouth High School and $7,500 for Don Darrow from Scholastic?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, Patty?
Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Nancy Kleberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, everyone, and
Kelly.
thank you, Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah,
and,
Kelly Clarkson.
And her crew. And thank you, Zach, for dealing with NBC. I'm sure it was fun to go home at night and say, I was on the phone all day
Oh,
with
my
NBC.
people will call your people. We'll make it happen.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
So you have several items in there that are just notifications. The overnight field trip is the E-Camp for Little Harbor, similar to the New Franklin and Don Darrow have already done theirs. This is Little Harbor's version. There's a notification about the retiree reception that we'll have on the 11th. That's a tradition that goes back quite a ways. Separate from and then correspondence, you have some resignations and retirement letters. Folks that we're sad to see go, but excited for the next steps for each of them. One of those I'll just note, just in terms of our budget conversation, I think I talked to you about the last one, Jim Sparrow, who's a school psychologist, and that during the budget season, we had talked about the fact that we were already beyond proper caseloads for school psychologists, but that we were adding an additional school psychologist, but that we were concerned that Jim might retire because Jim always has a couple of interns that we get not free labor, but cheap labor from as they're going through their process of learning. So with Jim's retirement, we'll lose not only a really skilled long-term person, but also those folks as well. And so that will, make a little bit of a dent in how much of the impact the additional school psychologist will play. So those are all the written things. The things that are not included that I did want to give you a heads up on that are both very recent developments. One from today. The U.S. District Court finished sentencing in relation to Kyle Hendrickson. The board will remember that Mr. Hendrickson was the gentleman who made the video in front of Portsmouth High School with a firearm and with text that said, "I'm going to shoot up the school." That led to a variety of different actions in the school district. Mr. Hendrickson has been since was detained and has been held pending trial. Had gone through the trial phase, and that was the sentencing phase today. The district did submit a victim impact statement on behalf of the community, just discussing the kind of the psychological and safety kind of feelings of safety that has been wrecked as a result of this gentleman's actions, not just his decision to do what he did, but then to run from the authorities and have people in a situation where we didn't know where the gentleman was for a period of time. And as part of that victim impact statement, we also submitted a request for restitution for financial damages incurred by the district as a result of his actions. And so that part of the legal process, now that sentencing is done, we'll come back around to restitution conversation in earnest in August. But I believe it's 37 months with time served, so it would be another few years before Mr. Hendrickson was back out of the prison system. So just want to make sure people, both the board and the community, was aware of where we were at in that regard.
Thank you for the update. Yes.
If we could just, for the record, state what the restitution request is, just because I do think, obviously, restitution is not a deterrent for mental health issues, but I hope that anybody that thinks that they want to come to the school and do what Kyle Hendrickson did will take heed to the restitution request and what that means for them and potentially their future. So if you could, for the record,
Sure.
what your restitution amount requested
So
was.
I'd say in our victim impact statement, we talked about the fact that there were some things we can monetize and some things we can't. So we weren't in a position we know this had impact on families, and we weren't in a position to monetize that. But we did look at costs incurred to the district between lost instructional time, some of the security improvements that we had to make as a result, including a new crisis management system, the ramp up, the training, all those types of things that came on the heels of this. And so our request through the court system was for $219,460.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for that update. And did you want to talk about this, or?
The other thing I want to talk about is just around make sure the board was up to date on the ongoing city budget conversation. So we had two different things that happened yesterday. The first one, Nathan and I were involved in the morning, and the second one we just kind of listened in on. In the morning, the city did its all-day listening session, work session, with all department heads across the city. So we start with the three charter departments, police, fire, and the schools, and then we move on to all the other city departments. In that, we review the 700-page city budget with the city council. As you know, we've talked about this before. The process you go through creates your proposed budget, which goes to the city manager. The city manager then comes to her own kind of conclusions about what she's going to propose to the city council. But then the city council, lots of things could happen in the city council. So we came and we spoke to what was included. As you'll recall, the things that we did were left in after the city manager reviewed our proposal was the school additional money for tuition and transportation in relation to out-of-district special education placements. The school psychologist, Nathan help me, or Patty help me.
The maintenance.
The maintenance supervisor, the nurse.
Part-time to full-time nurse.
Yep. The maintenance supervisor was not included. I'm sorry, the maintenance supervisor was not included. The part-time nurse was not included.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Not included.
well,
The not
the
included is by the
non-included.
manager.
Right.
But it did include, to bury the
Psychologist,
lead, it
Pete.
did include the temporary classroom or classrooms for Dondero. So we went through our whole presentation. At the end, we had a couple of questions from members of the city council, specifically in relation to that temporary classroom at Dondero. And there was some good give and take amongst city council members who had a variety of different opinions about that, and some folks who, I would say, to summarize it, I want to be fair to those that were involved in the conversation, there were a couple of folks who were throwing out ideas about how we could redistrict for the fall. So I appreciate some of the reaction I just got from that. So that was some of the dialogue, and I think there was some push around that we should not invest in the temporary classrooms because we should be able to just come up with a solution that would reallocate students for the fall of the upcoming year. And then we went through that process. And that was not everybody, but it was a few key members of the city council. And then in the evening, the city council held their first, one of their first in this round, public hearings, where people just had the city manager did a brief introduction to the budget binder, talked about what we were doing, what we had talked about in the morning, and then gave folks in the public an opportunity to come up and talk. And there were a couple people from the public who also were like, can't we just figure out some other way to do this so we don't have to make that investment? So I did pass out in paper form, and I'll see if I can pull it up so people just at home can see. I just wanted to show you, because we did have a conversation with the principals this morning, the elementary principals, and let me pull up, and just kind of the impact on, let me get into that Zoom session real quick. And that way we can show folks at home. And I think, can you send me an invite? Because I don't know that I might be able to get it right. I got it, yeah, thank you. And while I'm pulling this up, what you can see is you got two pages. One is what it looks like, one scenario, which would be we put in the temporary classrooms at Dondero. We reallocate one.
Recording in progress.
We reallocate one teacher from Little Harbor to Dondero, and then it kind of shows you what would happen with class size. So let me pull up real quick for the public. Choice of panelists, thank you. And I can walk you through too what's on there, kind of how to look at it. It's a little confusing because I sliced and diced a pre-existing document that we had in order
I have
to.
a quick question while you pull that up. if
Yep,
possible.
sure.
The idea of these temporary classrooms is the idea that, I know when I had gone to the elementary school, and we had, at Dondero, we had modular units. The modular units were for music and maybe some special education classrooms, or they were classrooms that were not, first grade, kindergarten, or whatnot. Is the idea that these units would be used for specials, or is the idea that an actual classroom is going to be using that space?
Ongoing conversation about which of the two that would be. I mean, right now, the first thing is we just want to alleviate the pressure on square footage that we've got.
Okay.
What's that now?
They're going to be connected to the building. You need to.
Yeah. Oh, Tish has a question. Nancy, Tish has
okay.
a hand up, so I just want
All right, let's go to Tish first, and then we'll do Kerry.
I got to see if I can.
Okay, thanks. I just have a question. Where do we stand with enrollment now? Are we?
That's what Tish, I've got
feeling? good, or?
I've got a doc that I'm going to share as soon as we can give me. The rights to
Oh, okay,
do so.
thank you.
It gives all the numbers, Tish, for.
Yeah, and I'm going to walk through so
Dondero,
you can see it,
Little
and then
Harvard,
also
Franklin.
the public is able to see it too.
Kerry.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Tish. Kerry?
My question was very similar on the responsiveness to kindergarten registration.
Yep.
I don't think I can do it.
Can I share you the document and you can share the document?
Yes, I can do that.
Awesome. All right. Give me just a sec, guys. So. All right. And then can you maybe blow that up a little bit? So we can... Okay. Great. Perfect. So let's start first with like what kindergarten enrollment looks like, based on, now we pushed hard because I think we've talked about this in the past, that our kindergarten enrollment was a later in the season type of thing in the past. We went earlier this year and we pushed hard. We did a lot of advertising, digital advertising, to try to get folks in early. So that number there, where you have Mike Parr plus 10, let me explain what that is. Mike Parr is our database manager. So he's looked at what all the incoming enrollment numbers look like. And then we added 10% for what we think might trickle in during the summer. Our hope is our numbers are pretty good in comparison to what annual enrollments have looked like, but we wanted to build in a little buffer. There's always the possibility that things could change in more radical fashion, but you get the idea that if we end up with 3 kindergartens at each of the spaces, then what we'd end up with is numbers we're pretty happy with. 16s, 17s, 15 in terms of the breakdown amongst each of the different schools. So we're feeling good about kindergarten. Patty, if you scroll, this is where it gets more interesting. So these are different, you kind of can see, and the board has the advantage of having this on paper in front of them, but this is if we transfer the teacher and we had a portable classroom, what those numbers will look like. Orange is Dondero, blue is Little Harbor, and yellow is New Franklin. If you go all the way, Patty, because if you get to, I want to see 4th grade and 5th grade, so you got to go down. And let's go, all right. So if you go over to, in this scenario, this is the one where we have a portable classroom, right? So in the 4th grade, you would have at Little Harbor, in the 4th grade, you would have, maybe I can highlight it actually, right through here, can I? Yeah, there we go. Or no?
It's harder to see that way.
Okay, never mind. So we would have in the 4th grade, we'd have 3. What page are you on here? Oh, good. That's helpful. Great, thank you. So in the 4th grade, if we do the move, which was to reallocate, so in the 4th grade at Little Harbor, you'd end up with a 19 and 18 and 18 in the 4th grade, three class sections. And in the 5th grade at Dondero, you'd have 4 5th grades. And I'm missing a number here.
Yeah.
I don't see the 4th, 5th grade.
The 4th, 5th grade doesn't
Let
have
me
a number.
Let me see your.
See, it doesn't have a number right there.
17. We can do the math for
Yeah,
you.
it's 17, 17. It's basically 7. It would be 17, 17, 18. So I
22.
apologize for the challenge in the document. Basically, it would be 17, 17, and 18 in 4 5th grade classrooms is what it would be. Then in the
17, 17, 18, 18. How many?
You have one missing here for 5th grade. What was that? What's that blank?
8, 16.
what's the name?
22
Patty, what's
would
the,
be
what's the
the
name of
number.
the document you're in right now?
If you do the math.
But he's saying there's 4 classrooms.
Yeah, hold on. I'm just trying to see if.
Anticipated with utilization of temporary
8,
classrooms.
16.
Give me just a sec.
Right.
Is
Just so everyone knows, this just happened yesterday and today, so that's why
Yep.
maybe we're
Isn't that on the
a little,
other side without the classroom? You have 4, but with the classroom. you
Give me
have
just a
3?
second, I can. Sorry, I apologize. This was hot off the presses this afternoon as a result of some of that conversation.
Actually, it's 4.
Give me just a minute. So, let me re-break this up.
I think what he's showing is you took one away from Little Harbor here to make the classes.
So it's 74. I just got to break up that number. So it's 74.
There's a big class.
It's a big, right now is a big 4th grade, is what it is. And when we get
So
the.
next year will be 5th grade.
Next year will be 5th grade. And that was like we had 2 groups that really felt the impact at Dondero this year. And they were,
17, 17, 18, 17.
hold on one sec. You got 3, boom. Sorry, guys, 74.
18, 18, 19, 19.
So it would be, let me get it one more time, 74 and.
74 minus 52 is
How many educators
22.
does it take to divide 74
Oh my God.
by 4?
18 and a half a kid.
18 and a half kids. There it is. So there you go. Thank you very much. So here's what that would be. So my apologies on that last column being empty.
So it would be 19.
18, 18, 19, 19.
Oh, you're in the right one now. This is what I wanted.
This is the right one. This is the one.
This is the one I
we
want to
did
see.
today.
Okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, so my apologies. So here you go. And this actually has green highlights to make it easier for one. So Patty, if you can make that a little bit
Hang on one second.
larger. Sorry, gang. I shared the wrong one with Patty, and that helps lead to the confusion.
So it should be 18.
Because this one
18,
even has
19.
pretty highlights, so it's easy to even see what I'm pointing to. So once we get it up, so you can probably so what would be in the 5th grade? You'd have 4 sections at 4 sections at Dondero, and it'd be 2 17s, 2 17s,
There we go.
2 18s, 2 17s, 2 18s in the 5th grade at Dondero. And Little Harbor, the impact probably what would be different is most likely you'd feel it at the 4th grade level, where you'd have 3 4th grade classes, and those 4th grade classes would be 19, 18, and 18, right? So that's like if we make the move, that's the impact. And if you slide all the way over to the right, Patty, and we'll make this document available in the minutes, so if the public wants to see it, if you go all the way over to the right, where average class size is. So what you end up with across those areas is basically within a rounding era, the class sizes the average class sizes at each of the schools ends up being the same. 17.1, 17.3, 16.9. Very, very close to one another. And then the flip side of that, if you go scroll down, Patty, would be if we don't make the move, and you got to go. I know I made you make it big, so now it's hard. There it is. Great. So the flip side of that would be you leave it at Little Harbor, and then the 4th grade at Little Harbor, which is the biggest of the groups, those turn into classes of 13, 14, 14, and 14. And then the Dondero 5th grade is 25, 25, and 24. So having gone through the bubble group that we went through last year, I think there were parents who were rightly concerned about our ability to make sure class sizes we're never going to have perfectly balanced class sizes, but that we were more in line with what else was happening in the district, and that one school didn't feel a bigger impact than others. So as part of the conversation that we've been having is we wanted to correct this issue in the short run while we continue to look at what is happening in terms of housing development in the city of Portsmouth. And so a lot of that new housing stock is coming online, and it right now is in the Dondero catchment area. But and I think for those in the community, if you drive by Yokins and you look over across the way, you see condos going in by Yokins. Juniper Lane, if you're heading out of town, you're heading out towards Rye. There's the places that went in on Juniper Lane, just off of Lafayette as well. A lot of the new, what's it, WHEB? WHEB is being targeted in terms of some development. The TOR is being targeted as possible development, and the city has an interest in
McKinnon's, where McKinnon's
and
Market is.
McKinnon's, right, there's new housing going in there, and a lot of those projects are, and this is, well, let me slow down for a second. The group that was having some conversation about potential redistricting, we met with the planning department to say, well, what do you guys think? How many kids, if you had to anticipate, how many students are going to come from these units to our schools? And we have particular interest in around Dondero based on what we're looking at right now. What would you anticipate, and how could that help us potentially redraw lines in the future if we need to redraw lines? And really what they, and anybody else had a different interpretation, please chime in. What they said is, one, we don't know, Zach, but two, most of these projects are 1 to 2 bedroom units as a result of developers and the way in which they think about, how they're going to get their return on investment. And it's not with 3 to 4 bedroom properties. It is 1 to 2 bedroom properties, which is also in line with kind of what the price points are going to be, and what the city's interest in is in developing below market housing as the number one city goal in this year's city budget. So that puts us in a position where we're not sure what the impact is going to be when those properties come online. And I know that I know that in the intermediate term, we will have to consider a redrawing of lines to basically send more kids to Little Harbor as a result of the square footage that is available at Little Harbor, and less kids to Dondero. That's something we need to do in the intermediate term. My interest is in doing that one time and having it stick for like 10 to 20 years. I don't want to do it multiple times because my concern is that has a big impact. I've talked a lot about families, but it has a big impact on kids who are going to be, I'm in a school, I'm used to a school, I'm in second grade, now I'm in a different school. And what I don't want to have happen is that kid move in second grade and then also move in fourth grade, if we can avoid it. What I want us to be is to be thoughtful. I want us to be methodical about how we approach it. And I want to make sure that it happens because the last time was 20 years ago. So, this is, when we do it, you take it seriously, you do it right. I think the inclusion of, when we talked about this during the budget process with all of us, the inclusion of the temporary units is about giving us the opportunity to alleviate the immediate concern around classrooms that have too many students at Dondero, and simultaneously give us the time to do the longer term process correctly. So I want you to be very aware of the fact that, yesterday there were multiple parties who were not initially swayed by that conversation. And we're saying that one of the areas where the city could cut funds would be to eliminate those temporary classrooms. And I just want, in that dialogue this is going to be fast. We're in May. This has to be all wrapped up by June. We're also in a position where we have multiple issues that we're dealing with in relation to being able to make sure that we hold on to. Right now, we have a commitment from a company to supply us with the temporary classroom. That doesn't last forever. We're going to have to be able to take action. Kenny, I will tell you that in conversations with Kenny, I've told him to start, he's already mid-permitting process to kind of have things ready if we're going to go ahead and move in that direction, which I anticipate that we will. We also need to be able to tell teachers where they are working next year. And we're up against the tail end of the year, and also some contractual obligations around notification to staff. So the long and short of it is, I want to make sure the board's aware of that conversation. I want to make sure that I hope the board continues to support, as we did during our process, that approach for the upcoming year, with the idea that then we would move. I think Nancy's had conversations already about restarting a similar type of committee that was utilized the last time to start looking at redistricting. And that would put us in a time frame where we would be able to have better data from those other places that are about to come online. So I don't know that I'm looking for a vote, but I'm at least looking for confirmation as to how hard I should be pushing on that item.
Yeah.
Okay. Byron, Kerry, Liz.
Thank you, Zach. I think there's a lot of things there that I wanted to touch on. So I guess I'll start with first the suggestions around redistricting before next fall. And I think it's completely unrealistic, in short. And so if we want to meet the needs of the community relative to class sizes, I think then the solution that we have in front of us is the modular classrooms. I don't think it's ideal, but I think it's the solution we have, and we shouldn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good in this case. As far as the redistricting committee meeting that we had and information that we got from the Housing Navigator and some of the other folks from the city, from the planning department, I agree with what you said as far as your assessment of their take on, we don't know what the impact as far as school-age kids and the new developments would be. But I think that the urgency is there, and I think this is a call to action to the members of this committee and the members of the redistricting committee and to the members of the planning department to do a better job relative to modeling that information. Because I think that there can be outreach done. I mean, there's take the development on Lafayette. It's a couple years old, sort of before you, like maybe across some water country. That's very similar as far as bedrooms and size to some of the developments that are going in Juniper, for example. So I think there's examples in that part of the city and other parts of the city that can lead to modeling around like what we can have. And we need to outreach to the developers and ask what that populations look like at the very least. So I think that there's a call to action on the city side as far as the planning department is concerned to help us model that information so that we can have the proper data to potentially do redistricting. Again, this year I think is unrealistic. So those are my thoughts on this particular issue. And just as a general sense of concern, I appreciate the administration's push relative to kinder-age kids registering early, but I'm concerned that these numbers are going to be low, and we're going to see. I just think it's, I'm not saying it, I think it's going to happen. I'm concerned that at worst case, this bubble continues. So that's where I am on this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Kerry.
I am also on the committee and also was of the mind that there's some quick fixes, and I had lots of good ideas, and I was very quickly dissuaded from that. But I think the biggest things, or one thing that hasn't been brought up, I just wanted to add to the conversation, was that the new housing stock that has come online, we have put into Little Harbor District already. So that intervention is already in the works, already on target. So as we talk about new housing stock, it's already done and it hasn't made a difference in the numbers and the expansion. And I think part of that is just acknowledging the price point of those units, and that older units are probably more affordable for families in spaces that are already there. So it is going to require not just a path of moving forward with which bucket we put new houses in, but actually changing what we have that's already there. And I definitely, as Byron said, with our conversation, really feel like it's off the table for September, and that this is the best way moving forward. But that we'll continue that conversation.
Thank you, Kerry. Liz.
I guess I'm wondering what this looks like if we don't get the units, and what this means as far as space goes, or if there's any solution if we're not granted the funds to get the units. Essentially, I mean, obviously we need to advocate for them, but God forbid we don't, and then we're sort of in this crunch again. obviously I've been kind of waving the red flag for a while now, and was waving the red flag when I was in the prior committee meeting when they vote, the rest of the committee voted to have the new housing stock go to Little Harbor, but the new housing stock then that was going to Little Harbor were some bigger houses. I think a lot of the new housing stock that are going to Dondero are more affordable, or, I think I live in the cheapest place in town, but that's it. And I think these other apartments are all at around the same rate for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. So I do believe there's going to be a lot more families coming in. So, what does that mean? I mean, if God forbid that does happen and we don't get these units, is there a date that we could, obviously this is a quick turnaround, but do we need to establish a committee so that we can redistrict for the fall and, take a look at bus routes and see, what might make the most sense for sending over to Little Harbor, New Franklin if necessary.
So just two things. One, I'll answer the most immediate part, and then I want to get to another part that I want to emphasize with the council, which I think is reflective of where the board is, but I want to make sure. So the first is the city, and the mayor acknowledges this, that the city doesn't have line item control over our budget. The city decides on a bottom line for our budget. And so when we're having conversations about the things we might do, and there's things they don't like, it's about the justification for the bottom line they might give us. If they were to, not saying this is absolutely what you should do, but if we were to receive $90,000 less than what we had, where we're at now, we could still decide to allocate the funds in a different way to still get that because we think it's a priority. Now, when we went to the manager and we talked about what our priorities were, we, similar to the conversation that we had here, I can't remember if it was number 1, temporary classroom, number 2, school psychologist, or it was reversed. It was one or the other. And that was, that's what we said were, chief priorities coming in. Those are the things we needed because we didn't want to be in a position where we didn't have good options. So I don't know. I would discourage trying to come up with some solution. I don't think that we have a good solution for the fall. I also don't know yet that we know what what it's going to look like long term, and we haven't done that. We haven't done that modeling, and so I worry about that. The other thing that I brought up with the city council, and I have it as a core part of us thinking about how we would potentially do this, and I assume this is where the board's at, and looking at our current map, it looks like this is where previously people have been, which is we're interested in two things, which is distribution of students, the proper proportion of students to the square footage that we have in our buildings. So we have a kind of an equal, fair way of doing that, but also trying to be thoughtful about having similar mix of demographics within our schools as well, and that being an important thing. And I think you can see it in our current map. There was efforts to try to make sure, and this is the kind of the conversation I was having with the council, where they're like, well, why don't you just send, people who are on the, I don't know, why don't you send the West End to Little Harbor? Or why don't you just do this because Little Harbor's short? My concern is similar to what you were saying, Liz, about like when we brought on Parsons Woods and we brought on Kate Street, those are both, properties that kind of on average was like their mean price was like $900,000, right? So those properties went to a place that I think disproportionately is a more fortunate piece of our community. That school, there weren't a lot of kids that came out of those things ultimately. What I don't want to have is based on the style of housing that is being built down Route 1 to have it be Dondero is the apartment school, and Little Harbor is the three-story house school, and New Franklin some combination thereof.
5-story house.
I think that is not in the best interest of the school district. It's not in the best interest of individual students. But we haven't got into a formalized process of how we consider redrawing. I know for me, in all my public comments, it's been that would still be what we would want to do. We would not want to create this kind of segmented segmented population within schools based on socioeconomic status. So.
Okay. And then the other couple pieces, I just want to say, I would encourage that all classrooms be within the Dondero building and those modular units be used for the extracurriculars or special ed or things where the children are being pulled out of classroom, reading specialists and whatnot, so that one classroom isn't sort of on the outskirts of the school, that all the classrooms are within the school if possible. And then I guess I also just wanted to throw out the idea of, there is a lot of land, it seems like. I mean, I don't know what the boundaries are of Dondero, but, is there a bigger conversation at some point of not having modular units or paying a rental fee or whatever the fee is for these units, and instead adding, an additional wing or something of the sort, what that might look like. Obviously, I think the housing stock on Route 1 isn't going to change. I think we're going to see more and more apartments and those type of units because we need workforce housing. We need that. And I do think where Dondero is located, that's the, sort of the catchment area as far as a lot of those units. So, what does that mean going forward? And, could we have a bigger conversation within the committee of, what would the cost be to add a small addition or some sort of addition versus continuing on with units? Because again, when I was in elementary school, we'd had the same thing. We had, I believe it was 2 units out there. I don't know if Nancy can recall if it was 1 or 2, but I believe we had 2 units outside. So this isn't a new idea for Dondero.
Thank you, Liz. Carrie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just add from the conversation is that the overall trend from the committee work, the trend is down. So the numbers are going to decrease over the next, even with this new housing stock. So that's why we had talked a bit about the addition not being a good option or that long-term planning, and it didn't go to the CIP. But the other thing that I was thinking, which is, you've probably thought of, but I'm going to pretend is my idea, and then in our next meeting we can talk about it. But I don't recall that we talked about the mix of rental properties and ownership properties, and making sure that that was part of sort of some of those boundaries, because I think that since the last redistricting, that has completely changed in the city. To your point about rentals and 5-story houses versus whatever. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Liz?
Just briefly in response, I know when I was in the committee before, there was all this talk about numbers, the numbers aren't showing, the numbers are going to decrease, and yada, yada, yada. But needless to say, Dondero is continuing to swell. So I'm a little hesitant to go by whatever the NASDAQ or whatever the projections are, especially given what I've seen. I mean, I grew up here, I've lived here, I did move away for a little bit, but I pretty much lived here my whole life. And seeing the kind of swell that's going on in the Dondero area, at least, I don't necessarily agree, in my opinion, but I'm no expert with what the NASDAQ might be for Dondero.
And the NASDAQ, NASDAQ hasn't provided us with within the catchment areas, so that we just have a general. So we know. So I mean, because this is to Carrie's point, we're down. In those NASDAQ figures I've given you before, over the last 10 years, 222 students district-wide. So this is part of my conversation with the council, because I think Councilor Blaylock had asked me, well, when we're talking about building additional housing, if people are like, oh, we can't build any more housing because our schools are all bursting at the seams. I said, my response to him was, all of your schools are not bursting at the seams. You have a school right now who is feeling a swell. But if the trends stayed the same, then redistribution of students at the elementary level would be the correct move, and you have the facilities that would be able to absorb that, because our facilities were designed to hold more students. And the same thing with Portsmouth High School. Portsmouth High School, was designed was when the base was open, and it was designed for a larger student body than what we have right now. So we have square footage. It's just a matter of reallocating that square footage, and in some cases, it's going to also be not just reallocating the rooms, but sometimes it's going to some reconfigurations, things like that as well. That we need to look at.
Has there been more conversation around? And I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's a crazy idea, but I don't think it's too crazy because several towns around us have done it over the past several years. but of switching our schools to having like K to 1, 2 to 3, 4 to 5. That way, I mean, obviously it'd be somewhat of a busing nightmare, but at the same time, services, I think that would bring down costs. We could control the swelling, so to speak. I mean, it would really just be more of a busing issue, I would think. But has there been any conversation around that? Because I don't know how other towns have done it, but I believe Hampton switched over and Somersworth has switched over. They're not exactly like Portsmouth, but I think that is a conversation we need to have too at some point.
Can I address that?
In my opinion, that would be a discussion the redistricting committee would have. So we can definitely turn that over to the redistricting committee. And that's what we did 20 years ago. Obviously, it did not come to fruition.
Okay.
Lisa, you haven't said anything yet, and then Byron.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I don't
Oh,
want to
Tish.
repeat
Okay.
all of these other ideas, but one thing other districts do in some situations, particularly when they're concerned about equity in terms of the mix of ownership or rentals or other demographics, is they go to more of a random assignment. And they keep the same kids in the same family in the same school, but you're no longer just a Dondero or just a New Franklin or just a Little Harbor family. I mean, it would be a real shift here, but it's another way to think about the space that allows us to have more control over balancing out, the mix of people in each building, and also having the numbers work out so the class sizes are the same. And we're not, in terms of this number of miles for the size of Portsmouth, so big that we couldn't think about that. I mean, we don't have the public transit to use that piece, but, I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Again, that's something the redistricting committee.
Totally
can look
fair.
at. Byron.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to echo some of what Zach was saying and just be very clear about some existing conditions. And so, because there's a lot of ideas going around, and I want to get out of that muddle and just make perfectly clear that we have capacity at the schools for all of the students in Portsmouth. And new housing stock that is coming online is not translating into an overpopulation of the schools. And the existing problem is one school specifically is overpopulated, which translates to the redistricting committee. And all of the ideas here, which are good, I think are better served in that context. And so they should come there, because that's where the hard work is going to happen. So I just want to be clear on that.
Thank you, Byron. Okay, I think we all agree that.
we got
Tish. Tish, I'm sorry, Tish.
Yeah, no worries at all. So my feeling, I'm listening to everybody, and everybody has a really good point. I do think that we do need to wait to redistrict until we have like a better understanding and not rushing. I feel that if we redistrict now for the upcoming school year, we would be rushing, as Zach said, and then we might have to redistrict in another few years, which again is going to, kind of volcano everything a bit. That it does seem right now that the answer is the temporary classroom, and to take a nice hard look at redistricting for the 2025-26 school year.
Thank you, Tish. Okay, I think, do we have a consensus that the modular classroom should be at Dondero for this next school year?
Yeah.
Does everybody agree to that?
Yes.
Okay.
We did this in the
Do we
budget.
have a pardon me?
Yeah, I think we did this in the budget, right?
You did.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah,
You did.
exactly.
I think what's important. You're right. You're right. Like, we made a decision. The decision was based on a conversation. We vetted the conversation. We went through that whole process. We really started that conversation before December, but we were in December having that conversation. It's been a multi-month long conversation around coming to the conclusion of which I think reflects what we were just talking about. I just want to make sure as we get into, as Nathan and I are like re-engaging the city conversation and Patty, that we I don't want to get out over my skis. I have my opinion about what I think you want, what I think we have agreed to. That opinion might run counter to portions of the city council. I want to make sure that my advocacy reflects you and not me. And I think I'm hearing that is the case. And so we will continue to push in that direction.
Yes, Liz.
I guess I'd also recommend, and I know you emphasized it tonight, that, this equity of space issue, because I think that is an issue. I mean, I wasn't in the committee to look at the space specifically, but I've obviously been one to sort of request that look at the schools. And so, when considering equity of space and where we're at, I think, and I don't know as far as these units, I assume that are we like renting them? I can't remember all the logistics around it.
It's a rental.
Yeah, so it's like, semi-permanent type of situation. And but I guess my other concern, though, is when we're talking about what's being cut, I mean, I would hope that you'd obviously come back to the board and we'd have a discussion about if they do decide to shrink our budget down, where are the cuts going to be made if we're going to have these units. I don't necessarily want to see a nurse cut back or, some of these services. So I think we need to have a hard conversation if the request is to cut our budget.
If we end up with a figure that is significantly different than, if it's a few $1,000s different, then we probably will make it work, But if it's something where we were looking at a $100,000 cut, $200,000 cut from what we had left, we would be coming back to you to have additional conversation. Now, we did come back to talk about what is in the manager's proposal, and then we left. You had the number 500?
564,000.
564,000. Most of that was the addition of the nurse. It was the expansion of the nurse, the second nurse at the high school, the full time. That was on the cutting room floor from the manager. It included the movement of certain positions out of federal funds into local funds to shore those positions up. The maintenance supervisor was part of that. That was left on the cutting room floor.
20,000 for materials. For
outdoor education was left on the cutting room floor so far.
Another 202,000 in the operating lines throughout the budget.
And throughout the budget. So those are things that were already left out before the city from the manager. That doesn't mean we can't try to push those things back in. But generally speaking, once the manager has made a reduction, the council is looking to make additional reductions, not to add things. So for us, that leaves in some of those other items that we were talking about. We did already bring that back to our group to talk about the fact that was occurring. Any additional cuts, of course, we would be coming back to tell you more and have additional dialogue about what that would mean. Is that a new Tish?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, just to sum this up, for the new board members, I just wanted we talked about Parson Woods and Kate Street. I don't know if you all know that before the shovel went in the ground in those neighborhoods, we redistricted them. Parson Woods should have gone to Dondero. Before they broke the ground, we voted that Parson Woods would go to Little Harbor. The same with Kate Street.
There might have been a ceremonial shovel before we did it, but yes, the core of it was not
right.
built.
And Kate Street, the same thing. They should have gone to New Franklin, and now they go to Little Harbor. Yeah. We can do the same thing, and Zach and I talked about this, like WHEB. That should go to Dondero. But maybe we could all vote before they put the shovel in the ground that particular complex could go to Little Harbor. And that's what the redistricting committee can do. The redistricting committee can look at these. Yokens, maybe could Yokens go to Little Harbor? I don't know. But we could do that. We did it with 2 of those neighborhoods. So and I also want people to know, today I contacted Susan Green, who is one of the Green and Company principals. I asked her to call me back to let me know our family's buying in Possum Woods. Our family's buying at Juniper Lane, which is a 3 to 4 bedroom complex. And then they have Yokens, they have...
we got to get the real.
Quite a few.
We got to get the real name of the Yokens thing.
Yeah.
I'm calling it Five Guys sometimes, and I'm calling it Yokens.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway,
people aren't living at Five Guys.
I'm waiting to hear back from Susan. But what I would like to say is we will reinstitute or reestablish the redistricting committee, which our 2 board members who are on it are Kerry and Byron. So we will ask you guys to, we'll talk and have you guys convene, put a committee together, put members of the committee together. If the Susan Green could be on our committee, that would be great. Well, whatever you all decide.
We'll talk.
Yeah, could I just?
We'll talk.
Because it feels, different parts of this conversation felt like a brand new conversation, and I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone that there is a redistricting
Yes,
committee.
yes.
We have met, we have discussed, we requested this modular unit be,
Good point.
go
Correct.
forward, and that we have had many of these conversations. I don't know what it is, and I am guilty of it myself, but I think redistricting, all of us feel like, well, I know about these neighborhoods, and I'm going to say this and that, and I will just say, let the committee do the work, provide any suggestions, and then they'll tell me how all my ideas are wrong, and how your ideas are wrong, because we can all learn from all these things, but the dynamics are a lot, and I just really appreciate being on that committee, but also just want to acknowledge the complexities, and yes, we are already meeting, and yes, we will meet soon again.
And yes, and Nancy made a good point. I didn't make a point of saying this to the city council the other day, that the board's already taken steps. Kate Street and Parsons Wood were already proactive steps to at least stem the tide. I think we need a more global kind of thought process that is aimed towards the long term. But it's not like this group hasn't taken some steps already.
And, Brian.
Just a quick thing. It did come to my mind that you're talking about, you need time. Have you thought about what that looks like? Like, do you need 6 months? Do you need, this date?
I think it depends on, so Nancy and I were having this conversation today, and one of the dialogues I said was, it depends on who's running that conversation. So if, as we were talking about it, at one moment, I said, well, if I'm running that whole thing, then the board needs to know basically next year I'm doing 5 contract negotiations and a redistricting, and you'll see me every once in a while otherwise. And I think Nancy's point was that was not, that last time it wasn't a superintendent run group. Superintendent participated, but that it was really a build out of the board and then community members in terms of doing that work. So depending on how that goes, and that creates additional bandwidth for me to still be a participant, but at the same time do other things the board would like me to be doing at the same time. So.
I nominate Byron.
Nominate Byron. Well,
Rick's in.
we can talk about that after this meeting.
So-
as long as we've established that we will keep that committee going, okay?
What is the time frame on this if a teacher is getting moved and their kind of advance notice of that move?
So in advance of this conversation, well, in advance of yesterday, we thought we were telling people today.
Okay.
And so then yesterday hit, and then I want to make sure I understood from this group where we were in terms of our kind of willingness to kind of just forge ahead. Because my desire is I don't want to let teachers last, like I said, the goal was that elementary principals were in a position today, or we finish the conversation today, and tomorrow would be the opportunity to start having dialogues with folks, because we don't want to roll it much later without letting people know, where they're going to be next year. Cool. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Liz.
I just had a similar question of what's the time frame for understanding like the firm budget? Like, do you know when's the next?
So, I mean, it depends. I think traditionally, Nathan, second week in June, latest.
Their target, I mean, the charter directs that it should be decided by June 30th, but it's on the city council's schedule right now to hopefully adopt on the meeting of the 6th, 5th?
So the first week in June.
First Monday.
If they can pull it off. And if not, I mean,
If not,
it's
then
not going to, this is
sounds
not
like-
going to happen, but if it made it to June 30th and it's the manager's default budget, right, becomes the budget. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Do you need our approval somehow to move forward with contracting and getting these units in before the budget's approved at this point? Like, I mean, would it make sense? I mean, I don't know what your timeline is for these units and your commitment in getting them installed and getting classrooms moved over and getting teachers and doing all this. Like, do you need us to take a vote to go ahead and allocate those funds now to go ahead and do this?
It's an interesting question. I would say, so in conversations with the manager today, she felt like what would be appropriate was to have the dialogue I just had with you, get a kind of temperature check on where we were. The city council has another work session on the 23rd, and I would assume, based on the conversation the other day, I'll be a heavy part of that work session. And we'll have some additional dialogue, and we'll talk in more depth about why we think this is the right course of action and why they should support the funds. In the meantime, the conversations I had with Kenny today was, you need to continue to proceed like we're doing this. So keep doing the work, line up all the people you need to line up, start doing the permitting work, start doing the inspections, all the things that you need to do. That if the company we're going through to rent the unit, eventually they're going to need a deposit from us. If they need a deposit, go ahead and make the deposit. If it would be a few $1,000s. So if it's something that we would have to eat later, then we'd have to eat it.
Would it make a stronger statement, though, if we made a vote?
If you're on
tonight
record
to
saying that this is something we definitively, just to re-emphasize, this is something that would be helpful, I think.
Okay, well,
but I also
so-
don't want to get into
So can I
a
make a
defiant, conflictual relationship with the city council at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me, though, that I think, we're pushing the end of the school year. I assume teachers and staff don't want to be there trying to rearrange classrooms all summer. And, we need to get these things rolling. Kenny's already in the works. So I'd like to make a motion. I don't know how best to do this, but I'd like to make a motion to authorize, or do I need to suspend the rules to make the motion? No. Authorize the superintendent to move forward with, are we doing 2 units?
It's a singular building structure, which includes the 2 classrooms.
With a singular modular unit to include 2 classrooms. Motion to authorize superintendent to move forward with a singular modular unit to include 2 classrooms. What should I add?
I think that's fine.
That's it?
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay.
So
Byron?
I think the spirit of the motion is good in terms of the school board making a unanimous statement in support of the modular classrooms being supported by the city council. The wording of the motion sounds like we're explicitly authorizing the superintendent to expend funds or go into contracts, which isn't the function of the board, as far as I'm concerned. So I feel like if we are going to make a motion to this end, it should be along the lines of a unified or consensus around the support of the modular classrooms if the city council fund them fully. Would be like as a statement.
And maybe it's a resolution,
yeah,
as opposed to an action. It's a resolution. It's a declaration of the intent of the board.
Yeah.
So a motion is not necessary as
Well, you could move.
No.
You would move a resolution.
Yeah.
You get a second for the resolution, and then.
Okay. All right, we did not get a second for this
No, I
one.
gave a
Oh,
second.
you gave a second.
For
Okay.
discussion.
For discussion.
Liz,
Okay,
if you would consider rescinding the motion, we can move forward with you can move forward with a resolution, a motion for a resolution to recommend that the council fully fund the modular classrooms for Dondero.
Yeah, I guess I mean, I might take a different position. I think it's the board's role to the board only has a few roles, and one of them is budgeting for the schools. So I do think that we have the authority to authorize that those funds from the school budget be placed in such a manner.
Right, and we have done that, but we're not specifying appropriations.
I think we are, though, because we did, I mean, this is maybe a question to Nate, but I mean, that's what we did with ESSER funds. We authorized where those went. So I don't know how this is any different.
Okay, let's hear from other people.
Sorry, I mean, obviously it's different than ESSER,
asking?
Let's go to Carrie and then Brian.
I think I agree with the spirit of it in moving that forward, but I just can't support something without the full budget being approved. I don't think we can do that, and I understand that's a barrier for the district. But I think the best we can do is be prepared, as is already the case. As much as, we had we got a report of one conversation, that doesn't mean what's going to come back isn't vastly different based on other things happening. And then we could have no money for any of the expansions, and we need to change course. So I'm not comfortable with, I'm not comfortable with the motion, and I'm not sure the resolution is helpful, but I think it could be helpful that we talk as board members with whatever they're called.
City council.
City councilors.
Whatever they're called.
A good way to start the conversation is remembering what you call them. That's thank you.
We've got,
Thank you, Carrie.
Tish.
Brian and then Tish.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I tend to agree with Byron on this one. I do think just having a unanimous voice from the board, I think will speak to the, that we're all on the same page. And it could be just as simple as we support the superintendent, fighting for the budget for having these modulars. That's it. That's all we have to say, that, and move on instead of talking about spending money or authorizing money. But I think that's simple as that.
I'll withdraw my motion in favor of Brian's resolution.
Do you
Second.
accept that?
I accept it.
Okay. And we have some other comments first. Tish.
Hi, so my
Write
first
that
question
down.
is, when would the deposit have to be in?
When was that? When was the deposit, Tish?
When would the deposit have to
It wasn't
be
clear.
made?
It was not clear as of this afternoon. So Kenny and I had that conversation. We knew we were approaching that period, and I had asked him today if we have a definitive hard date, and we don't at the moment. Some of that is dependent upon whether or not the vendor that we're using has another organization that would like to rent the same unit. So right now we're
Okay,
not.
and my-
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're all set, Tish. Go.
Okay, my other question would be, how much would the deposit be?
What the conversation I had today was a few $1,000s. Was the conversation
For the deposit.
for the
Okay.
deposit? It wasn't. This is not something where we'd have to put down, $50,000 in order to hold the unit. But the impression I got from Mr. Lynchy today was a few $1,000s.
Okay, so that's a few $1,000s that if we don't follow through with actually getting it, if our budget gets, slashed quite a bit, we would lose that deposit.
That is correct.
Comes from Kelly Clarkson.
Okay.
Yes, Kelly Clarkson cannot pick that one up. I don't think.
Any other
Okay,
comments?
thank you for answering those.
You're welcome.
Lisa.
So I am more inclined to go with a resolution than a motion on this one, but I'm not 100% sure if we need it. I feel like we gave the council our budget, and that already represents all of our deliberations on our priorities, and this is in there. So I guess I'm just not sure about the precedent of voting on different pieces of the budget. I mean, I think we can clearly voice our support for the portable classrooms
Right.
as a necessary way to create more equity in class sizes across the elementary schools, but I don't love the precedent of redoing the budget.
We really, really mean this. What we sent you. No,
I mean, the spirit of it's right.
I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but I appreciate.
But
we took.
next year
You
could be
took it
some
very
other-
seriously. You did serious work. You presented what you felt was appropriate on behalf of your constituency. Do you diminish that process by saying we want to reemphasize this particular element of that process? I hear that. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's try to move on, Liz, okay?
I guess, I withdrew and I'd like to move forward with the motion. If Brian's not going to put forward what he said, then I'd like to
I
put
think
it
Byron's
forward.
got something.
I think Byron has something.
Okay,
So
yeah, I
let's-
guess I do think it's important, given, I think, the time constraints that we're under as far as getting this established, having everything moved over, and really, if there's that many council members that are questioning these units, I do think that a resolution would be appropriate.
Thank you, Liz.
So I tried to write down what Brian had said, which is a resolution that the board is in support of funding the school budget as passed, including the modular classrooms at Don Darrow. Okay.
Okay, it's a consensus, correct? It's not a vote?
A vote.
You want to vote?
Go ahead.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, are you going to second?
Who, you did? Okay. 4 seconds.
All right, let's have a roll call.
It's unanimous.
Okay, Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Nancy Claiberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson. Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Pip Clues is absent. Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Passes 8-0.
I apologize for my writing.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, thank you, everyone. That was a healthy and good discussion, I think, about where we stand, and we'll pass it along. I still plan to get together with city council members. Brian would like to tag along with me, and, I can let the rest of you know, as long as we don't have more than 4, others could come. So why don't I let everybody know when we're going, and if you're free, and as long as we don't get past 4 people, you can come with me and Brian.
Appreciate
Okay?
it. Thank you.
So I will let you know. I'm going to set those up as soon as I can. Okay, what's next? I think we go to Brian French next. Correct?
Yep. So you guys have in the packet about the Superintendent Evaluation Committee. Obviously this is one of the big things that the school board has to do is evaluate the one employee we have, and it's part of his contract as well that we have to do this. We try to take big effort to make sure that we get all the information that we can from as many people as we can about Zach and how they interact with Zach, and thoughts on different parts of his performance. So part of that is, last year we did sent out a questionnaire to teachers and administrators. We, as a committee, looked over that and revisited, and there was a fair bit of editing that went on in terms of just paring down the questions a little bit. There's some duplications of questions, but a lot of the spirit of the questions are still there from the previous year. But I think it's a lot more refined. Lee and Carrie did a great job on doing that. And then we sent out a copy of that, and we did get a little bit of feedback. I know there's some spelling errors and stuff that we'll try to fix. But I think, at least from the feedback we got, that it looked pretty good. So what we're hoping for tonight to just codify it is a vote that, this is the questionnaire. Just to be clear, the questionnaire is going to go to all staff that we talked about with Zach. We were going to limit it, but Zach didn't see a reason to limit it. And I think that's a good idea and a fair idea. We're actually going to, from logistics point of view, somebody on this committee is going to send this out to the entire district. We're going to have people internally do it, but I think it makes more sense. And Pauletta said, you do it, basically. So the idea is that we'll vote on it tonight. I hope we accept it, because otherwise we're going to be in a loop. And that tomorrow we send out, this is for everybody in the district, including board members, to do the questionnaire. We have 1 week. We really want to try to keep it to 1 week, because in order to hit the timeline, send it out tomorrow, get it back May 22nd. That gives time for Lee and Carrie and I to go through it and compile it and try to, it's anonymous, so we want to make sure it stays that way. And sometimes comments are very specific, like so-and-so at some school. So we're going to try to anonymize it a little bit. So it's, people have that sense of anonymity when they took it. We'll compile those results over the next couple, May 24th. We'll be finished with that. Then we'll have a non-public May 28th, which is a school board meeting. So we'll have the before and review the results of that questionnaire. And then And then the chair on June 7th will sit down with Zach and go over the results. So that's the schedule, and that hits his contract and meets all the obligations that we're supposed to do. So yeah, I'm hoping that we could get a motion to approve this questionnaire tonight.
Question.
Wait, let's have a motion first. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Lisa, Byron, discussion.
I just want to be clear that this is not in the packet, correct? Because I generally, so what I do to avoid any, I know that we get emailed our packets, but I always go on the city website and download the packet from there to be sure that I'm getting what everybody else is getting from the city, on the city side of it. And so this was not in the packet I downloaded, so I just wanted to be sure that if this was intended to be in the packet, it's, you know, offered in some place or not, or, you know, make it clear that this is not in the packet tonight.
It was intended to be in the packet.
Okay.
And we can definitely include it in the minutes if it's, I mean, that's something we can take
Yeah,
care of
it's
and
not
make
in the
sure it's-
packet. That
it's in the
in
minutes.
the packet did say, like when I downloaded it online, it said it was an updated or packet, but the one I downloaded did not have this in it.
Okay.
It was
And-
probably me. I didn't put the when I put the minutes, I should have put the packet link or something in there.
Okay. I just want to be sure. And then I guess my other question too is, you know, is there time or is there going to be like sort of publicity to the teachers or staff and admin, provided that so that they can, I know there's just a lot of emails that go out. So, so that they really, put a focus on this and are able to offer feedback. Obviously a week is a pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
For people
Carrie's
that-
going to draft this great email that everybody just have to respond to.
with lots
in
of
order
like
for us to get it
flags or
out.
something.
And I'm happy to follow up in an appropriate way.
Yeah.
Because I think it's super important as an organization. One of the things we've been talking about is one of the struggles, and we talked about this during strategic planning, is that this is not a place that's done a good job with systemic professional feedback to people. That's a many-year challenge here in Portsmouth. So I'm happy to, really encourage people to be like, get out there, man, and be honest and give that anonymous feedback, because that's how I'm going to grow professionally. And if we're gonna get into, if we want to establish a culture of that being the expectation that we're a learning organization, and what we do is we provide professional feedback to folks. It's an important thing that we do. It's good for that to start at the top. And so.
Yeah, I want people to feel heard, and I don't want it to be like, all right, tomorrow you got this due by the end of the week, or whatever, and have people feel like they don't have time to really put thought into it. So I want to make sure that teachers and admin feel like they're heard, because I think that's part of this too, not only assessing Zach, but having people feel like they're being heard about where we're at. Because I mean, as we see on the news, I mean, there's a lot of turnover and conflict going on with admins and whatnot, and hopefully we're not having that here, but I guess if we were, we'd start kind of seeing it in something like this. But obviously wanting to give people an opportunity to be heard, period, is important. So
And I think the other important part will be not just on the front end, to make sure people really feel like they were definitely invited in a robust way. It would also be, and I think it's most powerful if it comes through me, is then sharing out the results of what people had to say in a very honest way, and the good, the bad, and the in between, and then me talking about how am I going to respond to what people said. What are the things I'm going to double down on because people said that was great, and what are the things where it's like clearly stakeholders are saying this is an issue. How am I going to respond to being more effective in those areas? And I think that those are the two ways. So that like robust inviting people in, and the second part is saying, reflecting back to people, this is what you collectively had to say, and here's what that's going to mean going forward. So.
Yeah, I think if you say that in your response email that you're going to proactively do that, I think you're going to get
Gonna get
a lot
better
of
responses.
responses. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Kerry?
I think part of our discussion, and having done a lot of online survey research and things like that, one of the things is like the limits of confidentiality. And I think one of the things that came up last year was that it does require you to sign in via Google in order to validate that you are a person that is eligible to take the survey, but it does not collect the email address. So that sort of that draft will have explicitly, this is what's going to happen, and hopefully more walk people through so that their confidentiality is more informed than I think earlier versions had been.
Yeah, there's no questions on there that really identify you other than admin, staff, teacher, other, unless you say, my name is on the comments, and or I'm on Dondero.
In my second grade classroom
Right,
in the
yeah, right.
West Wing in Little
Yeah.
Harbor, I said such and such, yeah, right.
Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Lisa still has to take
Lisa, sorry.
I was just going to say, I thought it looked a lot easier to follow this year. Then I could see all the work that went into kind of
Thank
making the
you.
questions track. I mean, it was a good effort last year, but I could see the work that went into refining it, and it was easier to follow. So I appreciate that.
And Lee liked it too.
Oh, no, Lee
That's a thumbs up.
Lee and I were the ones that,
You made
that
it shorter.
heavily revised it.
Shorter.
And so thank you to Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, are we ready to vote? Roll call, please, Patty.
Brian French.
Yes.
Nancy Claiberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson.
Yes.
Byron Matto.
Yes.
Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Pip Clues absent. Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Carrie Nolte.
Yes.
Passed.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we will move on, and I'm going to hand it over to Byron, and he's going to talk about the policy regarding background investigations and criminal history record checks.
Thank you, Nancy. So this
Thank
is the second pass at this policy, which is coded GBCD, which has to do with background checks. This had come before the board previously and went back to the policy committee. And I don't want to get into like there's some language changes between the previous policy and this policy, but the reason it went back to the policy committee wasn't about the language changes necessarily, is more about a specific practice in place relative to background checks. And that specific practice has to do with folks who get a conditional offer to work in the district, but that offer is conditional on their background check. And the state statute states that individual is not allowed to work in the building until the point at which their background check comes through. And the policy, this policy change doesn't actually change that language compared to the previous policy, but that was the sticking point in the previous discussion. So that context there. It went to, we specifically got feedback from Wadley, the outside counsel, relative to this particular issue, and their response essentially was that the statute, as well as the policy, doesn't specifically, or specifically doesn't allow in language in the law or in the policy that individuals be able to work in schools without the background check. That being the case, there are existing real-world conditions that lead to a certain practice, and not just in this district, but or in this department district or other districts as well. And that is, the practice is essentially that individuals with an offer, it conditional at the time based on the background check, are working, however, they're supervised by someone else in the district. And so back to the board today, trying to get a vote on this particular policy for a few reasons that I'll go over. One is that there really isn't a change. That particular part of the language was the point of discussion, but there's no particular change versus this version of the policy or the last version of the policy relative to that passage. So there's that existing condition. And then there's just the notion of precedents and practices, which is that there's precedent for this practice, not just in this district, but others. And the reason for that specifically is that background checks take time. so much time, depending on the time of the year, that it becomes a issue of efficacy in terms of the school district being able to, come through on its perfunctory duties to educate the student population. And so that's sort of the next part of the argument as to why we should move forward with this policy is that the practices have precedent, and the reason there's precedent is because we need it to be in place to be effective as a school district. So with that, that's sort of where we were at the policy committee, and the best I can summarize it. And so I'll be looking for a motion to approve this at second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Liz?
Okay. I know, I appreciate that outside counsel looked at this, and so I guess just to relay, my understanding is that, yes, we're making a policy, yes, there's a statute, but we're essentially, because of constrictions, we're not going to be following it. And so my concern, I guess, is, and I guess my question is, what did, and now that I'm thinking about this more, did outside counsel, or is there an opportunity, did outside counsel talk to you about this, or is there an opportunity to use other criminal background checks, not in lieu of the state background check, but as a buffer to have something, get the person in the door, and have done the background check? For example, legal software, there tends to be a fee to it, but a lot of large firms pay the monthly fee. It gives you a pretty in-depth background check when you run somebody. I've used it, and so I think there are, and there's some limited, financially out there. I guess I'm wondering if maybe that could add a buffer for the school system to do some sort of limited background check through some sort of online system as you wait the state DMV background check. And, would there be a benefit to protecting our students and protecting the school system in having some sort of limited quick background check along with what's required from the state? And so is that something that we can look into so that we're actually following the policy? Maybe we could even put a piece into the policy that that some sort of background check is, we recognize it as beneficial, or, so I don't know. I guess I'm kind of curious if that conversation was had at all. And I do, I'm sorry I didn't bring it up before, but I would see that as a buffer. There might be a financial barrier there, but, I think if there's enough of these that are needing to be done beginning of the school year, you could pay for some sort of service for a month or two to do this, because it is law firms have the access to it.
So I think relative to codifying it in policy, I don't know that I'd be in favor of straying from the School Board Association recommended policy and the statute, which is driving it. But I think that's a fine suggestion relative to practice implementation. And that would be up for the administration to take into consideration.
Thank you, Liz and Byron. Any more discussion?
Zach, can you speak to that at all? Did outside counsel talk to you, or
about,
is there ever,
about that particular suggestion?
Yeah, or is there ever an opportunity where the state's taking too long to get these back to run somebody's background, so you're not?
So under the statute, there are specific things. So the quick check you're talking about wouldn't meet statutory requirements.
Yeah, but at least would give a buffer, so you're not sort of sending somebody in.
In the past, have not done that. So I don't have an answer for you because I haven't looked into it.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Let's have a vote, please, Patty.
Sure. Lisa.
Yes.
Lee.
No.
Byron.
Yes.
Liz.
Yes.
Pip is absent. Tish.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Passed.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Byron, for your work on that. Let's move on to consideration and approval of employment. We'll go to Zach.
Okay. So the first of these new business items is the consideration and approval of employment for a new ELA teacher at Portsmouth Middle School. First name again?
Jessica.
Jessica Demers, who would be joining the 7th grade expedition team in the fall. And we discussed her qualifications on public.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve those 2 appointments?
So one's an
I'm
appointment,
sorry,
only one appointment.
Only one, I'm
So
sorry.
moved.
Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Carrie. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Patty.
Sure. Lee,
Yes.
Byron,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Pip, absent, Tish Campbell,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Passed.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we can skip the next one because we already voted on it, so we're up.
No, we haven't voted on the second one.
We got the leave.
Motion to approve the leave of absence for Berkey.
Oh, that one. That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Do we have a second?
Liz.
Yep.
Any discussion? Roll call, Patty, please.
Sure. Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Pip Clues, absent, Tish Campbell,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport,
Yes.
Lee Hudson,
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Passed.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we'll move on to the conceptual plan. Nathan.
As an informational matter, in your packet was a 2-page document shared with us by a design team working towards the redevelopment of the building we've been calling the Tour there at Lafayette and Ledgewood. And what is included, I'm sorry that we didn't set the graphic up to throw to the screen, but it's in the board packet. And the developer has reached out to us and as a part of the process inquired if we had any concerns. It would what they propose is to continue from the sidewalk that is existing there on Ledgewood. Let me go back, in case we didn't say it out loud. The redevelopment is for a volume of housing, and so there's expected to be students as well as family folks there. And what they desire to do is extend the sidewalk down Ledgewood Drive and connect the existing fence line, connecting to that existing fence line that's there, and then run along the property line, avoiding any impact on the practice fields, and end up over by the parking lot of the indoor pool. It would be a well-drained, 8-foot wide gravel walking surface. They would appropriately landscape along the fence line to make it easy for students and the public to access the school, while also, as I said, being cognizant of the fact that we don't want any impact or traffic across the practice field. It's not an action item for the board. My expectation is that this is moving its way through and will continue to move its way through the land use, the development process with the city. But given that it was running along the edge of school property, they wanted to make sure that the school board was aware and had the opportunity to offer comment. Mr. Lynchy met with representatives of the development crew on site to consider the plan. I would take questions, but I might just take the questions back because I'm not sure.
Liz, and then
just,
Carrie.
I mean, just for those that don't know the backwoods of the high school, having been a student there, isn't there already an existing trail through the woods right there? Okay, it's collectively known as the trail. I'm pretty sure.
There may be.
Okay, so I mean,
There
so
is.
basically they're going to be paving the trail, right?
Gravel.
Okay.
Although, again, my assumption is that the trail as it exists follows the same route, which is really tracing the property line.
Okay. So would we be giving them property or just sort of like right away essentially to do this?
Their property.
This is, I should have said this.
Okay.
This is described as
Easement?
no, it's described as, Mr. Lynchy, I'm so sorry. I should have done this
Is he gonna
better.
text you?
Yeah, will he text me? It is called a public realm improvement.
Okay.
So as an addendum to the development plan, this is a public benefit that's being proposed. So,
Which is not uncommon with new development projects.
New development pro-
That
yep.
developers are expected to have some kind of, here's something for the public good connected with the project.
Yeah, I mean, it would make the area more dignified, so I definitely would support it, I guess.
and I
Although I do like
asked.
watching
Trail
the
might
woods.
have to have a name beyond.
Trail
the
might
I
trail.
think it should be the trail stone.
That's what extension, I think, though. What I did ask, I asked Kenny if there was any discussion of upkeep, maintenance, plowing, like,
Parking spots?
There wasn't, yeah, parking spots. There wasn't any discussion. I don't know that I don't know that there's any upkeep expectation in terms of snow removal or anything like that. This isn't paved, this is just gravel. But it will, I'm sure, for much of the year, be a safe and identified walking space, so. The better-looking Nathan has a question.
Thank you. You may have already mentioned, Nathan, but is there a timeline for this, or is it just an idea?
I don't know. I mean, I know, obviously, that as I sit in more of these meetings, there has been conversation about this development, so it's an ongoing concern, but I don't have any sense of when it happens.
Okay, thank you.
He's just worried. He's got to find a new spot to skip class.
Right, exactly.
Or park his car.
Exactly.
What is the public benefit of this?
We're already using, I mean, it's already being used.
Right, so what?
It's a cut through.
But it'd make it safer, essentially. I mean, the woods is kind of a cut. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't know, Nathan's much more dignified than I am. We would cut class and go to the trail. And it's very heavily wooded. So I'd assume that putting gravel down and making it more of a designated walkway would make it a little bit more dignified, so to speak, and maybe a little less riffraff. I don't know.
It would definitely help too on those rainy days, because I remember I did a lot more freshman year walking over there. After school, obviously.
Good caveat. Good caveat.
But it's more, it just gets really muddy just in the woods, and I think that this gravel would definitely just help that a lot. It'd be more walkable.
It's just one step shy of the university. When the winter snow clears, the university eventually paves over the path that the kids wore down all through the winter. They pave over it. This is just one step shy of that. They won't be paving, but they are intending an 8-foot cleared and landscaped gravel. So I think it does. It adds. It reasonably should add visibility and safety and aesthetics.
Well, I'd also say the kids in those neighborhoods use those paths to get to school. So,
And there should be more.
yeah.
And Carrie, am I correct? And I don't have a great picture of where this sits, but this is the developer being able to say, walk to downtown, and you're not going through that intersection.
Nah, you wouldn't walk downtown through us.
You're literally walking.
You're showing up at the
There's the
football
school.
field.
Okay.
It's behind
So-
Bolorama.
It's the old Tuscan Market, Tuscan. Now it's been called Tour.
It's been the tour since I've been around.
Tour.
Right.
It's right here. There's the turf, the artificial
You
turf.
sent
That's
it
the
like
practice
this
field.
is the problem.
Well, that
I really needed it to be.
And I will say too, a lot of high school students park in, not necessarily at Tor, but in that area.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Probably. Now I'm thinking about this, probably shouldn't have said that, but
Tow trucks are showing up tomorrow.
they're all getting towed. But it's definitely a lot more than just the students who live over there, just to add that. There's a lot of students that go through that path each day.
They would rather have parking spaces.
Okay, are we finished? Nathan, thank you. All right, why don't we
Thank
move
you.
on? Thank you. Pip is not here tonight, so Zach is going to take the next two policies for us.
So
Are you ready to take it?
you're welcome.
Byron?
No, if you're ready to go,
Okay,
I'm happy to have
no,
it.
Byron, please
Go
do
for
it.
it, Byron.
Yeah, so I'll do my best. Pip sent me an email.
Oh, she did, okay.
Yeah, asking that I step in. So for these specific policies, so the first policy that's on the docket here is the IMGAA, which is the Therapy Dogs in School policy. The long and the short here is that we have in place in some of the schools therapy dogs. Essentially the policy is putting down that the school isn't necessarily funding these, but they are, I believe it's providing some level of insurance around those programs, but it's up to the faculty to implement any of the programs in their schools. I feel like that was the overall gist of it. Zach, I don't know if you want to add anything
So
specific.
obviously the nuance, and Nathan, you can jump in, because Nathan's had extensive conversations with Primex, our insurance carrier,
Yeah.
is that what's important, I think the old policy was entitled Therapy Dog Program, maybe, and we do not have a program. So a
Yes.
program would be, I don't know, like a K-9 unit where we employ the K-9 unit, and this isn't what this is. The way in which the insurance carrier looks at it, and this is authentically reflects what happens right now, is the dog is like a piece of equipment. And so if you're a teacher, for the purposes of insurance, it works this way. If you're a teacher and you bring your own DVD player to work, this is a DVD player with 4 legs and licks. It's that type of thing. You're bringing a piece of equipment to assist in your job. We allow that to happen, and you have coverage as long as you are doing your good faith doing the things that you need to be doing outside of the workplace. You're on your own in terms of your insurance. The dog, you're on the beach, and the dog bites somebody and whatever, then that person would be in that position. So go ahead.
I think one of the things Primex was really most concerned that we address is it's not the school district responsibility that you feed the dog or find health care for the dog in the off hours. It's not the district's responsibility if you are injured while you're caring for the dog in off hours, that you're not employed to be a dog
You're a professional dog handler.
Or professional dog handler.
Yeah.
You can come and the dog can come to support you in the delivery of your instructional practice or student support. And I guess the single biggest thing was we had in the old policy a clause that said essentially fully insured by the district. And then Primex said we don't have any mechanism for that. And Zach makes the reference to the K-9 unit. In that case, the K-9 unit exists as a different entity, and the care and feeding and so on and so forth are the responsibility of the owner. And the owner in that case, I hope I say this correctly, as I understood it, the owner is the PD, the municipality. So this was just clarifying, and the language that has been proposed is in many cases, and much of it came directly from counsel of Primex to make sure we're okay.
Thank you, Nathan. Carrie?
For some, I don't think we have a motion, right?
No, not we should, but we don't.
Motion to approve IMGAA therapy dogs in school.
Thank you.
And because I don't want this getting back to Utah, my favorite therapy dog, I'm going to use your DVD example. But my question is around like 14 in this policy. So let's say that a DVD player is just sitting there, not being used for instruction, and an injury happens with it. Is that what this is getting to? Like that if it's not in use or not being used for therapeutic, do you see what I'm saying? Or
I gotta look right
Okay,
at 14.
sorry.
That's okay. No.
Number 14 you said?
Line 14.
No,
No, line 56, right?
right.
Yeah, except for time spent providing therapy dog assisted
So
instruction.
you as the handler, you as the person who brought your dog, that was what I was just referring to. Any of the time you spend with your dog outside
It's
of.
not, okay.
It's not. That's not, we're not being paid for it. You're not getting overtime because you're playing with the dog at 9 o'clock at night. You're not insured. And none of the other benefits that extend for employment extend to you outside of, you came to work
But we
and you
think-
brought your
but-
DVD with you.
But you're covered. you and your automatic stapler are covered through even if so the dog's sitting off to the side and it's not actively engaged in therapeutic work. That's not like, oh, now you're not covered. That's our read. Our read is that, again, just like the stapler, the automatic stapler is off to the side and it's plugged in and it lights on fire. You're,
Getting dangerous.
well, I know, but
How
I mean,
about
that's the
a
parallel.
staple
I mean, this is for the insurance purposes.
Trail.
This is the parallel, right?
Yeah.
So, so it would be similar that's the case. So
Liz.
we wouldn't have to demonstrate active. Here's what define and here's active therapy work and what it looks like.
Okay.
You know. So
Can I just follow up?
Yes.
So, sorry, Liz. So what are we what is the district? I don't know. Let's just say everyone in the district decides to bring in, they want to use their own stapler.
So they still have to get an okay. You know, they have to have some type of certification as part of this process. There is not a singular national certification that's recognized by the state for therapy dogs. You know, so the state of New Hampshire does not license dogs for this capacity. So we accept training programs. We have to take a little look at like what was the nature of the training program and make some judgments about that. But so far, the things that people have brought us have been pretty thorough programs, reputable programs, and that's the way we approach it. Now this is a organically occurring thing, I think Utah is the starting point for this at New Franklin with Alyssa Brown. I think that is the starting point for an exploration of, especially in the post-COVID kind of period, like kids could need this, and then I think the success of that interaction and how much parents and kids really appreciate it and staff appreciate what that means and what type of impact it has led to the exploration with other folks. I think was middle school next after that.
Yep,
it was
and
middle
then
school.
I think it was Little Harbor and
then
the high
somewhere in
school
the
at
Little Harbor and the high school were
time.
fighting for who was in the next slot, and then
Don Darrow has the bees. So.
Has the what?
The bees.
The bees. Dawn does not. Yes. Right now it's Dawn and RJLA without. Although RJLA's got they got a bearded dragon at RJLA, so I guess that's where we're at. So we do not have a formal program at the moment.
Okay.
It is organically occurring. It is something we're going to have to. I think it's a good question in that we will eventually be forced to take probably a stronger institutional kind of approach one way or the other, but we're still in the infancy right now.
The best part of it, I think, it does lean into the animal-assisted therapy AAT protocols established by the Animal Assisted Intervention International Organization of the Netherlands. So there is a protocol, there's definitions, there's practices, there's a framework that helps judge the preparation and the certification that they have obtained as they make their application to the superintendent.
Liz.
So I just want to do like two real world examples and clarify whether we have it in writing by the insurance company that they'd cover it. So first real world example, God forbid, dog gets ticked off and bites a kid or a staff member. Insurance is going to cover that?
I think what we don't have. I think anytime you talk to an insurance company, they'll say, tell me I want all the details of the rest of the story. What was occurring at the time? What was the nature of the interaction? What was the handler doing? What was the whatever? But generally, what they're saying is, if someone is performing their duties, and in the performance of their duties, they have the dog is certified through a program, that district and the employee via the district would be covered in the event of that situation. Now they haven't been, I think what's going to be interesting, I think it's going to be for everybody. I think it's going to be for the state, for insurance companies, for a lot, as this is a growing thing, and it's not us exclusively. I think there's going to be an additional codification of a bunch of different stuff, both on the insurance side and on the licensing side. And then we'll be asked we'll have some additional questions, but I think are comfortable telling the folks who have the dogs that they are covered through Primex as long as they're not doing something that they should not be doing. And I think that was not super duper detailed with a bunch of loopholes where they can get caught. It was just broadly like, we're going to cover you as long as you're basically doing, teachery type stuff and the dog's there.
Okay, second example, kid gets, ticked off and hurts the dog. The dog then needs to go to the vet because a kid, kicked it or acted out or did something crazy.
I don't have a good answer to that one. I don't know
Okay.
I don't know that we've run that scenario through the carrier.
Carrie.
So sorry, I can't hold this in, but I would like you to, because you are in charge of therapy dogs, or the dogs that come with
I am
their
in charge?
people. Yeah, it says in the policy
Yeah,
that it's up
right.
to the superintendent.
Yes.
You should promote the superintendent evaluation by doing one-on-one evaluations with the dogs in your videos, please.
Okay. See what I can arrange.
Like, it's
See what I
important
can
for
arrange.
all of us to get feedback. I'm talking to Utah today about
talking
how
about
the year's been
marketing and
going.
Okay.
Great.
Good suggestion.
I didn't even know Utah existed, so I think it would be cool to have a video. I mean, if they haven't been on.
All right, let's vote. Patty.
Okay, Byron Meadow,
Yes.
Lee Hudson,
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport,
Sure.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Gary Nolte,
Yes.
Tish Campbell,
Yes.
Pip is absent, Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Passed 8-0.
Okay, moving on. Byron, can you talk about prohibitions regarding use and possession of tobacco and e-products? And let's have a motion before we start. Do we have a motion for this policy?
Motion to approve?
Yes, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Okay. Byron.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right. So prohibition. This was minor changes to the existing policy, coded as ADC, and I think most of the germane changes were basically just extending this policy to things like vapes and devices beyond tobacco, cigarettes, or what have you. And that's the long and the short of it.
Any comments, discussion?
Why is there 3 different titles to this?
Because let's see, one applies to students. J is a disciplinary to students. A,
Administration,
and then G is it employees.
G's employees.
So basically, this is like 3 policies in one.
What codes it? Right, 3 different ways for 3 different.
Three different categories of folks who are affected by it, all with the same expectations.
So we're gonna like repeat it in the.
It shows up in each of those
3
different areas
times. Okay.
in the policy manual.
Thank you.
Okay, can we vote? Patty?
Yes. Liz Barrett,
Yes.
Pip Clues absent, Tish Campbell,
Yes.
Carrie Nolte,
Yes.
Brian French,
Yes.
Nancy Clayberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson.
Yes.
Byron Maddow.
Yes.
Passed 8-0.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nancy.
Oh, extra ones in.
Okay, let's move on to committee updates. I hope everyone had a moment to read the minutes from Library Board of Trustees, Superintendent Evaluation, Policy Committee, Superintendent Evaluation, Strategic Planning, and then the Strategic Planning Subcommittees. Okay, any questions about anything on there? Okay. Future agenda requests, please get them to Brian. Oh, Lisa.
One question that I wanted to hold when we were talking about the evaluations, but we have not scheduled a board retreat, and we're nearing very close to the end of the school year. So if that could be something that could get on the calendar and potentially not happen during summer vacation, I would personally be excited by that. We usually run into scheduling issues over the summer where at least 1 or 2 board members are away.
Want to revisit some norms?
Yeah, I think that we could do it. Able to ever revisit our board retreats.
That's all.
that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I frankly forgot about it, so thank you.
Nancy.
Yes.
I mean, sorry, I think Carrie and I were having a little bit of a side opinions here, but I feel like we've done pretty well, and I know like the board repeats, we've come up with rules. I think in the past we've talked, there's board retreats have been a little bit chaotic with norms and rules and whatever, and I feel like we actually are running pretty smoothly. So and we already have scheduled meetings over the summer. I don't necessarily feel like we need a board retreat unless we want to go to lunch somewhere, you know?
Well, let's let Zach, Brian, and me talk about it, and we'll get back to everybody.
Okay.
And, let you all know what we think. Yes, Lisa?
So if we don't schedule a retreat, would we be able to set our goals for the superintendent in a public meeting, I guess would just be my question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We need to set goals at some point.
If we don't have a retreat, are we able to do that conversation around goals for the upcoming year in this forum? That would, I guess, just be my question.
That's a suggestion. Good. Thank you. We'll talk about that. We'll let you all know. Okay. I think we have to reopen the public comment.
Nobody here?
Here.
Do we have anybody on Zoom for public comment?
Don't have to do
Present?
public comment on the back end.
Oh, that's right. We don't do this. Boy, I'm
We're all here though with you,
I
Nancy.
know.
We're like,
We're
there we go.
exhausted. Yeah. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, do we need a roll call for that?
Yeah.
Liz Barrett.
Yes.
Pip Blues, absent. Tish Campbell.
Yes.
Gary Nolte.
Yes.
Brian French.
Yes.
Nancy Kleberg.
Yes.
Lisa Rappaport.
Yes.
Lee Hudson.
Go Bruins, yes.
Byron Maddow.
Seconded, yes.
The score is 2-1.
Yep.
They're in the third, is it the third period?
Yeah.
I've had my phone on all night.